Hello everyone and welcome to a Sims 3 speed build today, where I am building a kind of like a tavern or a bar for Majestic Valley, and I'm also, well, not really completing the graveyard, but I'm pretty much doing up the graveyard. Well, they've had a graveyard for a while in this town, but it just had the mausoleum on it, and I actually need to start placing down some tombstones. So it was about time that I actually, kind of did something with the graveyard and made it look nice and all that. So it's two speed builds, and I'm starting off with I'm going to call it the Tavern, and the build that I'm kind of going, well, the look that I'm going for is kind of like a hotel. The look is very kind of grand, and if this was actually a functioning hotel, it would have ideally a couple of rooms upstairs, but it is not going to function as a hotel. It's purely functioning as a bar. So yeah, really the sole purpose of the upstairs part of the build is purely for decoration. There is actually no floor plan or anything, and I use the hidden room marker and the skip level marker. And that's purely because of performance reasons. If I can stop a lot from being so laggy and my world in general, then I won't furnish parts of builds that I don't really intend on using. And I try not to have my lots too busy, or my community lots anyway, just, because I'm trying to avoid lag as much as possible. So yeah, there is no functionality to the upper level whatsoever. It's purely decoration. Speaking of lag, I have actually managed to improve my lag from the last speed build that I did, the consignment store, which is actually just next to the tavern here. And I did that by removing a ton of custom patterns that I have and had installed in my game. I used a lot of the Simlicious patterns, and they're really good patterns, and I've kept a good chunk of them, but I reduced the amount that I had by about half. I didn't even have all of them installed, and the file size for all the patterns that I had installed was about 190 meg, and I reduced that down to about 100 meg. And yeah, just building became so much easier. I mean, if I took out all the patterns, my build mode would probably be smooth as, but there's quite a few patterns in there that I feel are, quite essential, and, they just kind of make the game feel a bit more fresh, especially, some of the default EA patterns are a bit questionable, especially, the fabrics, and some of the woods as well are a bit iffy. But yeah, so it's kind of essential for me to use some of these Simlicious patterns, or keep using them anyway. So yes, I said the build for the tavern is it's looking like a hotel. Well, the design that I'm going for is to have it look like a hotel. And I thought that would be pretty cool, considering this is a very small town. And, if anyone was to stop by, then of course there would be somewhere for them to stay. Now, of course, there's no functionality, as I said, but that was kind of the inspiration that I went for with the build here, because it is quite a large lot, and I did want the tavern itself to be quite prominent. And of course, with the exterior, I'm kind of going for these almost like colonial style buildings. They are wooden, and they are, quite grand and ornate. But this one, it doesn't really have, this building here, it's not as kind of ornate as the consignment store. I mean, the consignment store had a whole cornice and like a crown, and it had a bit of height to it. Whereas this one, it looks a little more standard, like a standard building, but the front, I guess you could say the porch and the balcony just add a bit of extra detail to the building, which looks quite nice. I'm working on the floor plan here, and I wasn't following any particular floor plan. I did look at some photos for reference photos for inspiration, but not so much with floor plans. Floor plans, I kind of just tend to go with the flow as much as I can, because with The Sims, you can follow a floor plan, but then when it comes to The Sims, like a real life floor plan doesn't always flow so well, and so I kind of just put this build together, or the floor plan together, based on what I actually wanted in this build. So there's going to be a bar, and there's going to be an area for Sims to perform in bands. So there's like a little stage area and, a couple of instruments. And the reason why I'm building the tavern now is because I have a Sim in my town who is actually going to start a band. She has recently separated from her husband, and she has left her family and moved in with a younger man. She is pregnant and she's on the verge of becoming an elder. So I needed somewhere for her to be able to perform. And so having the tavern here was the perfect opportunity for her to, work on her band and make a living that way. Because previously she was an artist and she kind of worked on, paintings and stuff with her husband. But of course that whole situation is completely ridiculous and it's time for her to kind of move on. Anyway, so I'm working on the bar portion of the build now, and this bar I actually really like. It's quite hard to do, I guess, Victorian style builds with, or especially community lots, because sometimes the interiors of the builds can be very, very kind of over the top. I looked at a few bars for reference photos, and they are some of the bars are super, super detailed. They have this really intricate kind of woodwork to them, especially behind the bar. There's a lot of really nice, tiled walls and really funky kind of wallpaper. So I tried to do that with my game, or tried to emulate that with my game. And what I did was I put these kind of wall decorations, the ones that I'm recoloring now, I put these on the wall, and then I put a couple of mirrors behind them and put these like drinks that are on a shelf, but I sunk them down so it looks like they're sitting on the counters there. And the whole thing comes together really nicely, especially with the wall texture that I use just to kind of frame this decorative piece on the wall. And yeah, I'm really, really pleased with how this has come out. It's very, I wouldn't say it's well, it is actually quite dark in the end, but it has a really nice ambience to it. And when the floor and the furniture and the walls, they all come together, it really does feel like an historic bar in a way. Like it's actually one of my favorite builds in this world so far. So yeah, working on the bar stools here, and of course spending a lot of time sifting through my catalog looking for furniture that looks appropriate for the time period. Of course, I'm kind of playing in a time period that is more or less in the mid to late 19th century, and I'm doing the best that I can with the EA content that I have. I do have some custom content here and there, but not too much. Just I'm mindful of performance, but yeah, I feel like there is a decent amount of EA content that that I've been able to utilize to achieve a historic look. So I've got working on the floors here, and I framed the room with these tiles and just darkened the wood texture. And now I'm actually putting the wall texture on, and this is where I kind of have the wall texture frame the bar area. So putting some tiles on the walls behind the bar, and then just having the wood tones match the woodwork or the wood decorations on the walls, and then I'm just doing the rest of the bar with kind of like I don't know, I would just consider this to be like a wallpaper. And then I am recoloring the interior window frames and putting in a pool table. So now my Sims actually have something fun to do that is indoors, that isn't kind of associated with any skill. I mean, I know there's a hidden pool skill, but really the only fun things my Sims have been able to do is chess and reading. So they're not exactly spoilt for choice when it comes to fun, but they do make their own fun a lot of the time. They spend a lot of time socializing, they play with their animals. But when they're not doing that, they are playing chess or reading. So it's been quite nice to, or doing their labor task like gardening or painting or fishing or whatever. But it's nice to be able to give my Sims something a little more along the lines of recreation. And having a pool table here is actually, it seems like it's quite a big milestone. Now that I've been able to place one here, and I've play tested this a lot, and the pool table works well. I know the kind of the footprint of the full table. The pool table is quite large, but even when some objects overlap it a little bit, it works just fine. The footprint of the pool table is a little bit deceptive. It's huge, and then you think, oh my goodness, now I need like basically a grand hall to be able to use a pool table. But where I've squeezed it in the corner there, I've Sims have been able to use it just fine. The only issue I do have though is when other Sims just like to talk to each other around the pool table, and then a Sim will try and play pool, and then they kind of they can't finish their game because two Sims are gas bagging right next to it and won't move out of the way. That's the only issue, and I mean I don't even think that makes a difference as to where the pool table is. I mean, if two Sims just decide to have a conversation right next to it, then no one else can really use it. But yeah, anyway, now I'm working on the stage or the performance area for the band, and this is where my Sim Lena is going to pretty much start performing and earning her money that way. It's not the most exciting room, but I do try to make it look somewhat like a place where Sims can come and perform and have other Sims watch them. So I moved a lot of the seating and the tables and chairs that were in the bar into this room, and this is to kind of keep the build kind of consistent, and so that things kind of flow nicely between rooms. And there's only one bathroom, unfortunately, and it's just the way the floor plan worked. But since playtesting this lot, that hasn't really been an issue. I haven't really had Sims kind of wet their pants or anything. Occasionally there will be a Sim waiting to use the bathroom if someone's already in it, but for the most part, it's really only one Sim at a time that's trying to use it. And now I'm going through and adding in some detail to these rooms here. So just to make things look, more cozy, and so I'm adding some clutter and some decorative objects above the fireplaces. I actually saw this trick. I can't remember where I saw it, but having shelves above objects or counters or even fireplaces and moving them down slightly so it looks like they're built into the surface or they're just sitting on top of the surface. That's actually a really nice trick, and I can't for the life of me remember where I learned that from. I probably learned it from another speed build, but yeah, of course I've seen so many Sims 3 speed builds. I could not tell you who I learned that off. But now I'm working on the hallway, just adding in some details here. Some more stuff next to the fireplace, and yeah, just going around and filling in all the gaps, adding a couple of couches or love seats to this kind of entryway here, or the entry hall. And yeah, I guess these are just the extra details and the extra touches that make the build look a little more special. One of the things I did here was integrate these floor lamps into the counters, just to, I guess, add some more, or make the bar look a little more interesting. And now I'm adding some I was going to say lamps, but they're wall candles to the rest of the build. And you can see when I take out the the modern lights that I've used just to light the room so I can actually see what I'm doing. Once I start taking those out, you can see I guess the kind of the moody lighting that the candlelight gives. And I really like it. Yeah, all good with playing with moody lighting. So just continuing on with some recolors of the side tables in the entryway here, adding in some more lights. And I took out all these modern lights because I thought I was done with them, but then I had to bring them back just so I could do some recoloring and actually make sure the recolors look the way I want to. But then I get rid of them again. So I've got this runner right in the middle of the floor here, and I feel that just adds a bit of or makes the hallway look a bit more interesting. And then I'm going around and just adding a few more bits and bobs to the room. So a tiny bit of clutter around the fireplaces, and putting this what do you call it, this jug thing on the counter behind the bar, adding a few more pictures to the walls, and recoloring the coat rack. And then I put in just a little side table and a plant next to the door as well. And that is pretty much it for the interior. Oh no, we've got the toilet. Still got the toilet to do. And it's really not that interesting. It's literally just a toilet and a sink, and then a mesh curtain to cover the window there. And yeah, that's basically the interior done. And now I'm going to do the hidden room markers. I was going to retexture that little space behind the fireplace, but I just thought it would be easier to put a hidden room marker in there, because then it just automatically colors it black, which means I don't have to spend time finding a wall texture and changing that black or brick or whatever I want it to look like. Just the hidden room marker does it for me. So now I am working on the exterior and adding on these drain pipes to the exterior of the build, just to add some more detail. It's all about the detail. And going in with some benches and plants for the front of the building. But I was very torn about what I actually wanted this to look like. I felt like if it looked too cluttered, it just made the building look weird and just over the top, and that's not really what I wanted. I wanted it to be a bit more subtle, and I wanted the landscaping to do most of the work. So you can see I put plants there, but I eventually take them off and just replace them with some wall hanging plants. I've got these little balconies just outside the windows of the upper story. On these two windows anyway, I don't put them on any of the other windows, but I thought these were really cute. It was just a bit difficult trying to get the colors to work and look how I wanted them to, but in the end I got there. And now I'm just working on some ceiling plants and some wall plants, adding in a sign. And I try again with some plants. You can see I took the other ones off, and then I tried again with some other plants, but they just weren't, I just couldn't get them to work the way I wanted them to. So yeah, I just stuck with the wall plants, and well, I think I just choose wall plants actually. I don't think there's any ceiling plants. Pretty sure those ones there are wall plants. Anyway, so going on in with some lights, and yeah, these benches here. I initially placed them and I was like, oh wow, these are cool, and I didn't see them up close, and I couldn't see that they actually had anchors on the side of them, and that just was a little too themed for this kind of build. I mean, yeah, it just didn't quite fit with the look that I was going for, so I replaced them with just some plain wooden benches. Now I'm going in with some more terrain paint and just using these pavers that I've used pretty much throughout the town square part of the world, and with some dirt terrain paint where I'm planning on putting trees. And much like the consignment store, I'm trying to put in trees that are not found throughout the world. So they're not the trees that kind of populate the world per se. They're more unique. And yeah, the purpose of me doing that is so that these builds look, I want the landscaping to look more man-made rather than looking like it's the part of the natural landscape. Now I'm working on the last bit of detail here. So I added a couple more drain pipes to the front, and now I'm just adding in some landscaping to the front of the build. And this is where I was kind of, made up my mind that I didn't want any plants on the veranda there. I wanted the landscaping to do the work, so I put a bunch of plants out the front, added in a trough or the water trough for the horses. I actually forgot to do that for the consignment build, and so it's kind of bad luck for any horses who go there and they're thirsty. They have to wait until they get home. But any Sims who visit the tavern and they ride there on their horse will actually have a place to drink. I'll need to add one to the consignment store soon, but I just haven't gotten around to doing that yet. I did recolor the floor and the wood textures on the foundation. I feel like this kind of more grey coloured wood goes a bit better. The beigey kind of wood, I don't know, it wasn't really working for me, and yeah, so I changed it, and I'm much happier with this kind of grey colour here. And now adding in some dandelions, which look, amazing. And lastly, some signage. So you can see I put a sign out the front there initially, but it's really cool, but it didn't really just seem appropriate for the type of, the purpose of this build. It didn't seem appropriate for a bar. I wanted like a vintage looking sign, and it took me a while to find one. And I think I just put that one up there because I thought, oh wow, that's kind of vintage looking, but ultimately it just didn't fit the purpose of the build. So I replaced it just with the chalkboard version, and I played around with the bigger chalkboard, but just went back to the smaller one there. And now we're looking at some screenshots. So here's the interior of the bar. And yeah, once again, I really love the color scheme here and the moody lighting, and the entryway to the tavern with the bar on the left and the performance area on the right. Looking at the stage here, and then here's another view from the other angle. And here's a shot just off the porch looking towards the consignment store. And here's a side shot of the building with those little balconies off the side there. Here is the rear of the building and looking at the front. And yeah, I quite like this one. And now moving on to the graveyard, and you can see this is super quick. I think there's only like 3 minutes left of the video. But yeah, it really didn't take me long, and I didn't want anything super grand or well thought out and prepared. I mean, this town is in its infancy, and so having a super fancy kind of planned out graveyard just doesn't really make sense at the moment. So it's a very basic cemetery with a few plots, a few spaces for tombstones, and of course there is a pond for fishing. I forgot to put the what do you call it, the spawners for I think it's the deathfish. Is it the deathfish? Is that what it's called? I think that's what it's called. Anyway, I forgot to put the spawner in for that, but I need to come back and do that. But nonetheless, there is a pond there for Sims to fish, and it's got a pathway that leads up to the mausoleum, and then it's got this kind of nice space for just sitting. I mean, if anyone wants to come and hang out at the graveyard, they can come and take a seat and watch over the pond or some tombstones. I mean, who knows? But yeah, this one was super quick to put together. I was having a bit of trouble kind of working on the layout, like where I wanted the tombstones to go, where I wanted the path, or how I wanted the path to look. But once, especially when I just laid down the terrain paint, I was like, oh, this looks terrible. But then once I started putting in the landscaping, all the plants and the trees and stuff, it ends up looking quite nice. And overall, I'm pleased with the final product. It serves its purpose and it looks, somewhat decent. So, it's a keeper, this graveyard. But I think as time goes on and I move to the next iteration of the town, I will redo the graveyard, and I think eventually they're going to need a bigger plot of land for the graveyard anyway, because this is quite small, and I think eventually they'll run out of space. But for now it serves its purpose. So yeah, now I'm working on the seating area and just putting in some benches so that they look over the pond, and then I put in this nice little fountain that is centered in the middle there. And I mean, coming to the graveyard, of course, I've play tested this one, and this is actually really nice because, you know, you're just kind of surrounded by all these flowers and, you know, lush kind of bush. It's almost like a park in a way. And then just hearing the ambience of the fountain is really nice and relaxing. So it's not a bad space to come and hang out, to be honest. Now adding in some rocks, just some extra detail here. And we are pretty much nearing the end of the video. So I'm going to let you go, and I'll say thanks so much for watching. It's been a pleasure to bring this to you. Take care, and I will talk to you later.